Why is it so hot?
Hey guys, it's Jared. Man, all these chores are really hard work. I hope I make a lot of money so I can save up for future investments that really help me out in the long run. Whew. Isn't the PlayStation 5 coming out soon? Frick, come on, man! Oh shoot, okay, never mind. I'm good, this is okay. I'm fine with this. This is totally cool. I've had a PlayStation 4 for a while now, and I've been playing a bunch of games on it. I never really knew what I was missing until I picked one up. There are so many first-party exclusives with such polish and high production value, and I swear I cried way more than I should have while playing The Last of Us. There's something that's refined and kind of magical about these games that I really adore. All of these games are fantastic in their own right, but there's one game specifically that pushed me to get a PlayStation 4. What game is this? To answer that question, we'll have to rewind a little bit. Spider-Man is one of the coolest superheroes of all time. He can save people with amazing feats of strength and agility, he can crawl on buildings and swing across the city, but there's one thing, to me, that is more important than all of those features combined. He's a human being first, and then a superhero. He has to make tough choices just like we all do. He has to learn how to handle responsibility in a way that is poignant and mature. At least, most depictions of Spider-Man are like that. Then there are the other ones. See, I personally have a few issues with the MCU Spider-Man. I don't feel like he is Spider-Man. He's just like a spider kid. He relies on Tony Stark too much, he relies on the suit too much. He's not really all that mature, he's just like a teenage boy in a Spider-Man costume. And it's cool that Far From Home took away Tony Stark so that Peter could hypothetically focus on himself, but they just made it about Tony Stark again. They are alright movies on their own. I don't necessarily hate them as films. I just prefer stuff like Into the Spider-Verse or the Raimi films. That aside, movies aren't the only place where Spider-Man suffers when it comes to an honest adaptation. He's had it just as rough in the video game industry. He's had multiple games, multiple developers, and multiple reboots. Some of these games really hit it out of the park, like Spider-Man 2. With its refined web swinging and a story all its own compared to the movie it's named after, it really paved the way for the future of comic book games, like the Arkham Knight series. And then there are the other ones. Spider-Man Web of Shadows, Activision has had the rights to these games for a while, and you can probably tell how that went. They tried to make a new Spider-Man series. When that didn't work, they tried to reboot it and make another Spider-Man series, and then on and on and on. Because of that, these games never really lived up to the true idea of a faithful Spider-Man game. Either the game's story was all over the place, but the gameplay was fine, or vice versa. Nothing really is a cohesive package besides Spider-Man 2 and a handful of titles. I don't really want to talk too in-depth about these other games, we'd be here for hours if I did that, but I'll be linking a playlist of a retrospective that Godzilla Mendoza did. It really helped me in my research and understanding of the Spider-Man games that came out when I was too young to play them. Back to my point. It didn't really feel like Spider-Man had a good chance at starring in an excellent game. That combined with the MCU Spidey films created a situation where I personally didn't really get a true-to-form adaptation of Spider-Man that I wanted. That was until 2016. That year was crazy enough for video games. We learned about the Nintendo Switch, we got an announcement for The Last of Us Part 2, Xbox
4K game console
was Xbox. It was a pretty insane year for video games. And then, as the Sony press conference was just about to wrap up, we got a look at a brand new Spider-Man game developed at Insomniac Studios, the studio behind Ratchet & Clank and Sunset Overdrive. Not only was it a new Spider-Man game, but it looked amazing! Spider-Man was thwipping around the city, on top of cars, in and out of buildings, all the while webbing up huge cranes, running up walls and beating up baddies. All we fans had to do was cross our fingers and hope that this game lived up to the hype, especially since we knew nothing about the story. Now, a quick little tidbit. Around this time, I didn't have a PlayStation. You know, I was a hardcore Nintendo fan, and even then, I was barely touching my Wii U. I just used my 3DS a bunch. I remember seeing this game at the press conference, and I lost my mind. I wanted a PlayStation ever since. And now I finally have the chance to play this game. I haven't been this excited in a while. I'm ready to try this game out. I'm hoping it's going to be the perfect mix between an excellent Spider-Man game and an excellent Spider-Man story. Let's pop it in and see how it goes. This is Spider-Man. Marvel's Spider. I don't know. All right, I want to get one thing out of the way. The plot is amazing. It takes characters we know and love, Mary Jane, Miles Morales, Aunt May, and adds a new perspective to their character that gives the story the energy that it needs. The writers also made the smart decision to make Peter the same lovable dork we know and love, but change when we see him. We don't see him in high school or college, we see him as an adult. He's been Spider-Man for 8 years now, which means he has new problems, both as Spider-Man and Peter Parker. He's got to pay for an apartment, get an actual job, rebuild a broken relationship with MJ, all the while fighting crime and spitting quips as he does it.
You're in luck, Yuri. Your favorite tough but lovable, grizzled, seen-too-much detective is in town.
What? No. You promised you wouldn't do that
Spider Cop.
Everything about this game feels fresh and innovative. It plays off of what we expect from a Spider-Man story. Peter and MJ to be together, Doc Ock to be a bad guy, Norman Osborn just to be the owner of Oscorp and the father to Harry, to really drive home the core of this story. Responsibility. Peter has so many points where he's got to make a tough call and figure out what he has to do. He makes a lot of mistakes. He creates his biggest villains yet. He causes the organized crime in New York City to rise substantially due to what happens at the opening of the game. And yet, time and time again, he prevails and makes the right call, no matter how hard it hurts. Then, oh my gosh, there's Doc Ock, probably one of my favorite characters in this whole game. Both he and Peter have a similar responsibility, to use their gifts to help others. Otto is, at first, trying to create prosthetic limbs to help out others, but when Norman Osborn shuts his research and experiments down, his pre-established anger for Osborn only grows. That, combined with the fact that his body is growing weak, pushes him to create 4 robotic limbs to enhance his body, not just replace it. He then goes on a rampage, endangering multiple citizens just to get revenge at one person who is pretty corrupt. He's using his powers to bring service to himself, all the while becoming more and more corrupt. Otto failed to make the right choices, and instead warped his own worldview just to get even at one person. He says one of the coolest lines that reflects this towards the end of the game.
Peter, I saw you as a son. I should have known you'd turn on me, just like all the others.
Turn. I've worshipped you. Your mind, your conscience, wanting to help others. The way you never gave up.
That's because men like us have a duty, a responsibility, to use our talents in the service of others. Even if they don't appreciate it, we have to do what's best for those beneath us, whether they understand it or not.
And then there's all this stuff with Miles Morales and how in the main story he slowly grows to trust Peter and lean on him after the death of his father. And then in the DLC, after he gets his powers, he looks up to Peter and constantly calls him, asking him when he can join in crime fighting. And Peter's like, "You can't do that," and talks to him about the reality of being Spider-Man, like constantly doing math while he web swings to ensure he's doing it right, and discussing how Miles needs to learn this before fighting crime. I absolutely loved that moment. It brought a sense of realism to the game, as well as establishing Peter's role as being a mentor to Miles. Then there's all the stuff between MJ and Peter, and how being both Spider-Man and Peter Parker ties into their relationship. There's just a beautiful scene where MJ and Peter are talking after being at odds with each other constantly due to Peter's overprotective nature, and MJ wanting to stand on her own 2 feet. And it just shows how much care they take to flesh out all of the characters. The story is just so good. The characters feel realized, their dynamics established in a strong way that feels organic and honest. The story lived up to everything I wanted it to be. However, this isn't just about the story. How does the gameplay hold up? The game's gameplay feels natural and fluid. The progression is too. You start out kinda weak with just your basic combos and action moves, but then as you move forward, you get web bombs and traps and electric webs, suit powers to aid you in your quest to beat up the baddies. The focus, it's sort of like a power-up bar in this game, is awesome, and it constantly adds a sense of strategy and a need to pay attention while you fight. Do you use all your focus now to heal up, Or do you wait and use a bunch of it for some finishers to take down a huge group of thugs? I was sitting on the edge of my seat, mashing buttons and trying to make the right choices to get to the end of a fight. And then there are these wicked stealth missions where you gotta sneak around and making sure you weren't spotted by the remaining bad guys. Some of them are kind of out of place, like the ones where you have to play as MJ or Miles. Don't get me wrong, these missions were cool. It's just that feeling like Spider-Man was so amazing that these missions were kind of hard to swallow when I just got done swinging around the city. That brings up a sizable complaint I have with this game. Sometimes it gets a little repetitive. It is broken up because when you aren't fighting baddies, you're watching a cutscene, playing a story mission, or swinging around New York City. But regardless of that, some of the combat does feel a little stale at some points. You either have a combat mission, or a stealth mission, or a stealth mission with a character that is not Spider-Man. That's it. In addition, there are these weird science-y puzzles that really halt the game's sense of momentum. The weirdest part is you have the option to skip them if you'd like, which then begs the question, why are they in this game to begin with? Back to the point, you either have combat or stealth missions or weird science-y puzzles. That's it. But at the end of the day, these issues aren't something that wrecked my experience with this game. They're just a few minor issues that are noticeable. They don't take away from the other amazing parts of this game, like the web swinging, which is definitely one of the coolest parts of this game. It's insane! And you have all these wicked moves you can do with the air that gives you XP, and then you can speed up by shooting yourself off of ledges. It's crazy! Everything feels tight and responsive, and it makes me feel like Spider-Man. That's no joke. You really do feel like Spider-Man when playing this game. No matter if it's during combat or while swinging around the city, it just feels epic. You always feel like you are growing in power as the game goes on, and that's due in part because of those web upgrades I mentioned earlier, as well as the unlockable combat moves and web swinging skills you can get by beating both story missions and side missions. Ooh, that brings up all the side missions scattered around New York City, as well as the open world you play in. I won't lie, as soon as I saw the first tower I had to unlock to get that section of the map, I got a little nervous. Ubisoft-like open world games are kind of a dime a dozen these days, but there are literally so many side missions in this game that it kind of made up for it. And for every different side mission you complete, like crime missions or scouting out locations to take a picture, or getting one of Peter's backpacks and seeing what's inside, you can get tokens. These tokens, in turn, help you get new Spider-Man suits. In a lot of ways, it gives you a very valid reason to explore the open world. And then there's the music. Ooh, there's the music. It's perfectly fit for a Spider-Man game. Every note of every tune emphasizes the mood that the scene or moment is going for. John Paisano did a fantastic job with this score. It complements the game incredibly well as standing by itself. I mean, I listen to the main theme on the way to school, or when I'm just in the mood for something inspirational. It's on Apple Music and Spotify, so give it a listen when you have the chance. And ooh, the graphics! Spider-Man has never looked so good. The lighting, the character models, everything is so detailed and beautiful. Especially when you play during the evening or night in certain story missions. Everything just comes alive and leaps off the screen in a way I haven't really seen before. This was the first game I completed after I got a PlayStation, so it definitely wowed me on the console's power. I constantly was taking a step back while playing the game and just gawking at all the little effects and fantastic technical work on display. See, that's what I love so much about this game. Everything just feels amazing and has so much love injected into it. It made all of those years where I waited for a good Spider-Man game just to hear that it was average worth it. It made all those years of waiting for a fantastic Spider-Man story worth it. Spider-Man for the PS4 is truly spectacular. So those were my thoughts on Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4. It's a fantastic Spider-Man game with beautiful visuals, a sweeping, epic score, immaculately detailed combat, a vast open world, and one of the best Spider-Man stories in any medium to date. Yes, the weird science puzzles and out-of-place stealth missions do mess with the game's pacing just a little bit, but it doesn't take away from the heart and soul that Insomniac placed into this game with such love and care to truly make one of the best Spider-Man experiences ever made.
I give this game an A. Now with that review out of the way, kinda gonna miss feeling like Spider-Man. If only there was a way to feel like Spider-Man in real life. Well, I know what I'm doing. Hey guys, really quick thing, this is way more unscripted than the video you just saw. Number one, I'm finally back to making videos, as you have just seen, and I really hope you guys enjoy the content that'll be pumping out. It'll be a lot like this. I kind of took a little break from making videos because I just wanted to cement how I wanted to make them, how they would look, how they would feel, and then I just kind of came up with some ideas. So yeah. I really hope you guys enjoyed enjoyed this video. I loved making it, and it was a lot of fun. Second thing, we are at like 115 subscribers, so I'm kind of late, but I really just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting the content and just the channel. It really means a lot to me that you guys just, you know, watch my silly videos about video games. But yeah. I think, yeah, that's everything I wanted to talk about. So, until the next video, you guys stay safe. Wait, no, stay safe regardless. What am I saying? Stay safe regardless, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.